All right, welcome to our spooky tree painting. This painting is really about learning how to make tints. So a tint is when you've taken a color and you've added white to it. So in this case, in this example, that a student made this one, we have purple, and you can see it gets lighter as there's more and more white added to it. We're actually gonna work backwards on ours. So what you're gonna do on your piece of paper, you're gonna need a pencil for two things. First, on the back, you're gonna put your name. Okay, and then on the front and the top, one of the top corners, we're gonna make a circle for this moon. Now it doesn't matter if yours is smaller or bigger than that one. It doesn't matter that if it's a perfect circle or not. You're just gonna make some kind of circle. You don't wanna draw too dark. Maybe I better draw it darker to make sure it shows up in the video, but there's a circle up in the top corner of my picture. That's where my moon's gonna be. Okay, now for the painting part, I have water and a paintbrush, and I just want a medium-sized brush. Doesn't matter if it's round or if it's flat. On my paint palette, I have one color and two things of white. That's all I need. In this case, I have red. Now, an important thing to know if you choose red is that it does make pink when it's mixed together. I also have some paper towel because when I wash my brush out, if I need to wash my brush out, I want to make sure that it's not wet, because this is not watercolor. We don't want this paint to be see-through. We want this paint to be the opposite of transparent, and that word is opaque. Opaque means you can't see through it. That's what we want. All right, so I'm gonna take my paintbrush out of my water, and I'm gonna kind of dry it off, because like I said, we don't want a really wet paintbrush. And I'm actually gonna start with plain white. So even though my paper is white, and I could leave it just the color of my paper, and that would be fine, I'm gonna go ahead and paint my moon white. So I'm gonna paint here in my moon white. One nice thing about putting the paintbrush in the water to start with too is that you make sure it doesn't have paint left in it from somebody else using it. So kind of wash my brush out, because sometimes with watercolor, they look like they're washed out, but they weren't. All right, now that I have my moon nice and white, I'm going to take some of this white paint. I'm gonna move it over here. What I want to do is I want to make the very lightest tint, the lightest pink that I can make. So I'm going to take my brush in here, and I'm just going to touch it in there. I'm not taking very much, and mix it in here and see what I think. And if I decide, well, that's actually darker than I want, then I can add more white. If I think I really can't even see the color, then I can add more of the color. I actually am going to add a little more white because I feel like it could be lighter than that. Still feel like it could be lighter. All right, so once I have a pink that I think is pretty light, in my case a pink, but you have your tint that's kind of nice and white, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna overlap a little bit to hide this pencil mark. And as we do this, we want to overlap each time to kind of help blend these tints together. So I'm gonna go around this, and you know what, I need to get a piece of paper to go underneath me in the corner here. So there we go, just a piece of scrap paper to help so I don't paint my table too much. But I've made like a circle around here. I'm gonna go ahead and make another one just to make it nice and wide. So I've gone around twice right off my paper there. So now when I make my next tint, which I'm gonna make by putting just a touch more red in here, and if I think I can't really see the difference, then I might get some more. Okay, I want to overlap a little bit onto that one. So I'm doing it again. Make it nice and big. And what's gonna happen is at some point I'm gonna run out of paint. When I've kind of run out of paint, my brush is nice and kind of dry, I'm just brushing it off here. Then I'm gonna come back in here to help blend out that line. See how I can just blend it out with a dry brush. And now I go smoothly from one tint to the next one. So let me show you that again. That might have been confusing. Get a little bit more red, make a slightly darker tint. Go around this, overlap a little onto it as well. At some point I'm gonna run out of paint and have to make more and kind of color mix it. That's okay. But as my brush is starting to run out of paint, I'm gonna take that dry brush, and again, I can brush it off on my extra paint, and I'm gonna run it along this line and just sort of blend it in. So I have a nice smooth transition from one to the next. I've run out of paint, so I'm gonna take just a little bit of white and some red and try to mix it until I come up with a tint that seems to be darker, and I want to add more. I still don't have that much paint here. So I want it to be darker than I had before. And again, overlap. And that's what you're gonna do. At some point, you're gonna run out of tints. You're gonna end up just having, oops, look, I got some color up there. I'm not gonna worry about that. I can, when my brush gets dry, try to pick it up, but overall, I'm not gonna be that worried about it. Once I move my paper over here, once my brush is nice and dry, I'm gonna try to blend that line out and dry out my brush again. Actually, maybe this time I will wash my brush out. So I'm gonna put it in the water, wash it out, dry it on my paper towel, and then I'm gonna use it to kind of pick this up a little bit there. Okay. So at some point, what I was trying to say is that I'm gonna run out of tints. I'm just gonna get so close to red that it's pretty much red, in which case I will paint the rest of my paper just red. I'll just keep going with red. And that is the whole day one of this project.